that it's far easier, generally speaking, to get a woman to have an elongated ecstatic experience during the sex act than it is to get a man to. Even if a man has studied Tantra for years and is multi-orgasmic. And this is not to say specifically that moment of orgasm, because the moment of orgasm is a moment. It's the build-up where the charge really comes from. It's not really just that one explosive moment, though the explosive moment has a lot to do with it as well. The build-up has a lot to do with it. So if you're charging things, it seems to me that, as you were saying with the Kali and Shiva, I would go with Shakti and Shiva, but that's okay. The idea of you know, whether it's penetrative sex or some kind of other kind of sexual manipulation, it would seem to me that one could charge things far more potently if you were to utilize the extended ecstasy that you can put a woman through if, for instance, you know about clitoral stimulation and G-spot stimulation and all of this stuff. As far as fluids go, a male ejaculates approximately a teaspoonful. That's pretty much a scientific fact.
Yeah.
Female ejaculates something like 5 times more than that. Sex was
that's if she's...
that's just normal.
That's if she's... you mean in terms of lubrication and all of this as well?
That's just normal.
Yeah.
Well, there is a difference between the fluids, though, because...
Sure. And with a G-spot orgasm, a woman can ejaculate up to 3 and 4 pints. And they have no idea where this comes from, by the way. They have no idea where it comes from, where it's stored, but
well,
it does happen.
It seems to come from the bladder physiologically, but how it, but what it is because it doesn't seem to be urine.
No.
So that's the question.
It's coming from the tissue that when a fetus becomes a man, turns into the prostate, and in a woman becomes what they call the G-spot.
But it can't become a
like,
bladder.
It's more spread out, and it's not like a lump of tissue.
It would have to come through.
And these are all interesting questions.
That same tissue is there that's still going to be able to produce the same type of ejaculatory fluid, but it doesn't have the semen in it. Or it doesn't have the sperm, because semen is ejaculatory fluid from the prostate.
Well, it could have if you had the man ejaculate first, and then brought the woman to a G-spot orgasm where she was ejaculating massive quantities. Then they would both be mixed.
Yeah, and this is the kind of combination of fluids that Curly's talking about when he's talking about the pure substance, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, now, having got through that, the original title of this lecture was not Sex, Ecstasy, and Religion. It was Sex, Drugs, and Religion. We changed it because I didn't want narcotics agents here. But on that note, when we talk about self-perspective and we talk about getting in line on ourselves, the question of drugs has to come up. Curly actually has a table in 777 where he talks about the elemental and planetary attributes of different drugs and what ritual formulae are in line with different mind-altering substances. And I think this is very important. It's important to realize that a lot of the times when he's doing these rituals where he came to these amazing conclusions, he was fucking high. Like, high. So it's important to realize that and integrate that. I want to discount one thing, first of all. It's true that Curly was a heroin addict for a lot of his life. He was prescribed morphine as a treatment for asthma because it was still an acceptable treatment for asthma at that point in time, in the 20s, I believe it was, that he first got it. And he became addicted through that, through prescription medication, which, you know, it wasn't like he was out on the streets scoring as we would see today or something like that. And this is a very important distinction to make. A very famous drug user, Keith Richards, recently came out with a biography where he talks about the reason everyone always makes jokes about, oh, he did all this coke, he did all this heroin, how's he still okay? Well, he's still okay because the quality of the coke and heroin he was doing was very high. He wasn't doing street shit that was cut with God knows what and different poisons and toxins. If anyone's seen the recent TV show Boardwalk Empire, it kind of goes into that with prohibition and alcohol. The alcohol that was being sold as alcohol was not only more expensive, but far more harmful to people's health because it was mixed with all kinds of what the fuck ever they felt like mixing it with, which were far more poisonous and toxic than the actual alcohol itself. And this is true of drugs today. This is part of the reason that, although I am going to be talking about this, and I'm going to talk about how different drugs can stimulate different mental states and different ritual situations, the precondition to this has to be that you know your source, and if you're doing something, know what you're doing. And make sure that you're not just putting whatever into your body, because an unreliable source for any of these substances can be incredibly harmful and often fatal. A Surgeon General study in the United States, which was from 2003, I haven't checked really since then, said 79% of deaths related to heroin in the U.S. Had to do with adulterating substances, or the lifestyle that came with addiction, which was essentially due to the fact that the drug was illegal. I'm not advocating the legalization of drugs. I do not think most people can handle most of these drugs. And I think that's part of the reason that they're illegal. It's part of the reason the situation's shitty. I think it's going to stay a shitty situation because people just, in general, cannot handle it. This comes up in Liberal. It says